Okay, before I start today's essay, I want to say a word about why I make some of these videos. Life moves quickly, and most of us carry more than we let on. This channel is simply a place to slow down, reflect a little, look at each other with a little bit more patience and a little more understanding. Let's see the best in each other. How about that? And so, I mix this channel with poetry and song, and I pick up the guitar once in a while. And the essays have been really a passion for me. So, the essays are my reflections to maybe help somebody who's struggling to see life a little more clearly, or soften your day in some small way, right? Maybe we can, by sharing in this way, maybe we can help each other. So this essay, I might call it The Quiet Weight of What We Carry. There's a truth I return to many times, and it's this idea of it's better to be kind than to be right. How many of you have heard that? And it is true. Not because the truth doesn't matter, but because human beings matter more. So you have the choice if you want to show off your ego and be right and lambast somebody, or maybe it's better to make somebody feel good. Maybe that's the insight here. There's an insight going on. So Socrates taught us that, quote, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." Whether he said that exact quote or not, I think that's the essence of it. But the spirit of the idea is Socratic. It's humility, it's compassion, and the recognition that we know so little of one another's inner life, and that too many of us assume we know people. Think of people at work. We think we know them. We know none and nobody at work, really, not there. Maybe their upper 10% of superficiality. That's about it. And not to say all people are superficial at work. I didn't mean to say that. But there are real good relationships. But what we share, even in our personal lives sometimes, and maybe only to our spouses or immediate family. And how much does everybody else really know us, when you think about it? So kindness is not a weakness. It's not surrender. It's a deliberate choice to be human. It's to see humanity in someone, even when their behavior makes it very difficult. And the job I do, I work with escalated customers, and just to try to see a sliver of good in somebody. That sometimes that's what makes the call fantastic. If you can see that sliver of good, or maybe you can relate about a sports event or the weather or something. So the Buddha once said, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love." And this really ties into the idea of seeing people and not assuming, right? Don't judge. Yes, unless you want to be judged, right? There's a quote there too. Nobody has ever argued into healing. Nobody has been shamed into peace. Think about that. So more hate isn't going to magically create love. That's as unlikely as trying to roll a dice over and over again and expecting double sevens. You just never will. Finding love in the midst of hateful dialogue is very hard to do. We forget that people carry invisible burdens. The philosopher Kierkegaard once wrote, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. We've all have that feeling, if only I would have known, if only I would have known this, I would have done this. If only I would have had this insight, I wouldn't have done this. If only. We do a lot if onlys too, don't we? Most of us are stumbling forward with a past we barely understand, trying to make sense of ourselves as we go, and that's what life is all about. We're making sense of ourselves. It was John Lennon that said, life is what happens to us when we're making other plans. Serendipity. So, Lao Tzu, the famous philosopher, said, I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, and compassion. These 3 are anecdotes to the harshness of the world, really. And Nietzsche, often misunderstood as a philosopher of hardness, wrote something, he actually did write something profoundly tender. He was the guy that said God is dead. That's pretty direct, isn't it? This is the quote that he stated. He says, there's always some madness in love, but there is also always some reason in madness. Even in the chaos of somebody's outlandish behavior, there is a reason, there is a story, there are precursors, there's a cause to this madness, right? And kindness is the willingness to look for that story instead of condemning the person actually living in it. So how interesting is that, right? So it's better to be kind than to be right. And you can see that being true in a number of situations. And wouldn't it be great if our politicians could learn that lesson? They're just taking shots at each other all the time. What if they would take seriously? What if the politicians would take seriously that it's better to be kind than to be right? It would be a radically changed world. And don't give up hope that you can't change the world either. We can. All right, so be kind. Do one kind thing this week that you wouldn't have otherwise. Just reach out, and it's a random act of kindness, right? All right, over and out.